Murders for privatization. A Moscow story. Over years of working in Moscow's dark corners, I've seen it all, but the story of Alexander Murlov stands apart. Early 1990s Moscow. The Soviet Union had collapsed, and the city was simmering with chaos. Working-class families were moving from slums into new apartments, their faces glowing with genuine joy. The first Soviet constitution promised housing for all, and for a time it seemed the state was keeping its word. But there was a catch. No one truly owned their home. Everything belonged to the state. You couldn't sell, exchange, or pass it on. Nothing was allowed. Everything changed with perestroika. The state permitted housing privatization. Millions of people who had never owned anything suddenly became property owners. For many, an apartment became their only capital, and it quickly turned into the most coveted prize on the market. A brutal game began. Entrepreneurs, resellers, speculators, and outright gangsters rushed into the fight for real estate. Every apartment owner got a chance, but not everyone was destined to seize it. First bodies, summer 1993. On July 30th, a passerby noticed a man's body in the Moscow River, near house number 3 on Rostovskaya embankment. Police from the 7th Precinct arrived, examined the corpse, and sent it for forensic analysis. Death was caused by a stab wound to the heart. The identity couldn't be established. The nameless body became just another card in the file of unsolved cases. On August 23rd of the same year, another body was found in a forested area near the 72nd kilometer of the Minsk Highway, this one with a gunshot wound. Documents identified him as Alexander Yakovlevich Ershov. The body was sent to the morgue, but no one claimed it. Ershov had no relatives. 2 bodies, 2 deaths, seemingly unrelated. But I had a gut feeling they were part of one grim story. The well on Magistral-Naya. 6 months later, on March 10, 1994, 2 female bodies were discovered in a water supply well on 3rd Magistral-Naya Street. The local precinct officer identified them as the Petukovs, mother and daughter, living nearby on Shelepykinskoye Highway. Both were known alcoholics, leading reclusive lives, associating only with similarly downtrodden neighbors. The autopsy revealed death by strangulation. A search of their apartment yielded nothing. No signs of a struggle, only clothes and belongings suggesting they were killed at home. I dug into the case, questioning neighbors. The theory of a drunken brawl seemed plausible but lacked evidence. The Petukovs were quiet. Their social circle consisted of solitary drunks. Then 10 days later, another body was found in the same well. A man, Bolanenkov, also from Shelepykinskoye Highway. Like the Petukovs, he was an alcoholic, without relatives, quiet and harmless. Neighbors swore he could have had no enemies. First lead, I questioned everyone in the Petukovs and Bulanenkovs apartment buildings, looking for sightings of strangers. For a long time, nothing. But one day, Bulanenkov's neighbor dropped a phrase that changed everything. On March 7th, she got a call from the housing authority saying Bolanenkov was planning to sell his apartment. But it wasn't him calling, it was some young man inquiring about the apartment's documents for privatization and sale. The guy never showed up at the housing authority. This thread gave us our first theory. The murders were tied to apartments. Someone was hunting the homes of lonely, alcoholic people to seize their property. I reported to the prosecutor's office, and we launched an operation. We decided to beat the criminal at his own game. Operatives posing as lonely alcoholics willing to sell their apartments went to Bany Lane in the Mosprivatization building, hotspots where brokers and resellers gathered. We set up a trap apartment, rigged with surveillance equipment. Operatives were to bring potential buyers there. The killer could be among them. I studied the real estate market. Zeleny Prospect, near mass privatization, was the epicenter of shady deals. Brokers swarmed, scouting for owners willing to sell cheap. Quick paperwork, low prices. It was all bait for our criminal. We suspected he wasn't acting alone. Meanwhile, I worked with the homeless. Many had recently lived in apartments, but lost them to fraudsters. I hoped to find someone who'd crossed paths with our killer and survived. But fear of ending up in a well, like the Petukovs or Bulinenkov, outweighed their willingness to talk. Arrest. The breakthrough came when Bulinenkov's neighbor reported a stranger entering his apartment. We caught the guy on the spot. He was an agent from a real estate firm, given the key by a client who wanted to sell the apartment. The client, a young man, promised to return from Vyazma, where he was supposedly handling the owner's registration. We arranged a meeting at Belaruski railway station. I insisted we keep the agent's role secret. The arrest went down at the station, and there he was, Alexander Vladimirovich Murlov, born 1971. Unemployed, no prior convictions. Born to an officer's family, he spent his childhood in East Germany, where his father served in counterintelligence. Back in Russia, he finished school, then medical college, and served as an army paramedic. He tried to enroll in the journalism faculty at Moscow State University, but failed. He worked as a freelance correspondent for Moscow newspapers. His energy and meticulousness made him a good reporter, but a thirst for easy money led him to the casino. Murlov's downfall. One night at the casino, Murlov lost a massive sum borrowed on credit. As the repayment deadline loomed, he recalled his reporting on privatization. The chaotic mechanism of transferring housing to private ownership became his goldmine. A power of attorney signed at a notary's office gave full control over an apartment. All he needed was someone to sign. Murlov hung around liquor stores, buying drinks for alcoholics, probing whether they had relatives. If none, he offered to sell or exchange their apartment for what seemed to them a fortune. The victims agreed, signed the power of attorney, and Murlov didn't hesitate after that. Confession. The investigation uncovered chilling details. The power of attorney for Bulinenkov's apartment was signed 2 days after his death. A check of the notary's office revealed 2 more powers of attorney in Murlov's name for citizens Sidorov and Troshin, who vanished in July 1993. Under the weight of evidence, Murlov confessed to 8 murders, including Sidorov, Troshin, Vinokurova, the Petukovs, Bulinenkov, Ershov, and the Zhelesov. His methods were coldly efficient. He hacked Sidorov with an axe. He strangled the younger Petukova, expertly compressing her carotid artery. He drove Ershov out of town and shot him with a TT pistol. Bulinenkov was simply pushed into the well after losing his balance. Zhelesov was killed with a harpoon from an underwater gun after Murlov spiked his vodka with clophalin. As a paramedic, he always checked his victims' pulses to confirm death. But the wildest part was his motives. Murlov claimed that by killing the drunk and destitute, he was cleansing society, acting as Yeltsin's sanitary worker. The freed apartments, he said, went to worthy people, and he planned to invest the proceeds in a socially useful venture, opening a detective agency in Germany. Conclusion. Murlov got life in prison. His story is a dark mirror of an era when greed and the chaos of privatization bred monsters. I closed the case, but the images of the Magistralnaya well and the nameless bodies in the morgue still haunt me. Moscow in the 1990s was brutal, and Murlov is just one of its ghosts.